Hello, Namaskar. Welcome to my pod, the CAA Show. CAA, as all knows, Conversations and Analysis, and my name is Juggi Bhasin. There was a news item yesterday that the Border Security Force Director General Nitin Agarwal and his deputy, that is the BSF DG West Khurania, both these officers had been replaced. They had been sent to other postings, and new officers, of course, would be filling in their boots. And to my mind, that was an acknowledgement of the government that things are not exactly going their way, especially in the Jammu region, and that's putting it mildly. In fact, the entire region is aflame. The security apparatus, our counter-insurgency efforts, all that seems to be not being able to keep pace or matching up to the ingression, to the attacks which are coming in from the other side, from the Pakistani infiltrators in the form of terrorists, in the form of their SSG teams, in the form of their BAT teams. And just to give you an idea, SSG, of course, is Special Services Group. The BAT is a border action team. These are the specialized forces of the Pakistan Army and their paramilitaries, which they use or deploy against India specifically. So it does appear as if at the moment we are not particularly losing the battle, but we are not exactly being able to fend off against all these attacks which are coming in from the other side, and it's a big cause for worry. It does appear as of now that the government has started taking some stringent action. A lot of efforts now are underway to counter this situation, but in this particular podcast, I am going to raise two important questions regarding this entire situation. And the first is that are we not for just because something has happened right now and we are reacting to it, but are we really deep down prepared to do something about this problem? Because this is not a one-off problem. This problem keeps occurring and then reoccurring. Maybe there is a hiatus of a few months, there is some peace in between, but it keeps occurring again and again. So are we prepared to do something about it on a continuous basis? That's the first question which I am posing. And number two, if the answer is yes, then what is going to be our defensive strategy? And more important, what is going to be our offensive strategy? I'm going to discuss all these points in today's podcast. But before I do that, I would urge all of you to please subscribe to my channel, the CAA Show. All you have to do is to press that red button on your screen and you become a subscriber. Subscription is, of course, completely free, as all of you know. I promise you that my podcasts are different, ideas are very different, and I would of course appreciate if you could also like my podcast. That's obviously very encouraging. Now let's get back to the topic and kind of deal with it in all its dimensions and understand the problem. Let's first, before we even talk about what are we prepared to do and what could be our strategy, first let's understand the contours of the problem. What exactly is happening right now? The first thing I want to say is that this time, this infiltration, these attacks are slightly different, not even slightly different, but quite different from all the other insurgency or all the other insurgent attacks which have occurred in the past. And what is a big difference? And I will tell you my take, the biggest difference which I spot in these attacks. See, earlier, a lot of the teams, a lot of the infiltrators, a lot of the terrorists which Pakistan used to send across on our side, those were people who used to come with singular missions in mind. They used to carry out a particular attack. Either they would be successful or they would be trapped and they would be eliminated. That used to be the normal course. But more importantly, in the past, most of the attackers were also suicide infiltrators, in the sense they were prepared to take their own lives or they were prepared to perish in the particular attack. The big difference this time is that these attackers who are coming in they are not the suicide mentality attackers. And you might think, oh, that's good for us. That is not good for us, and I'll tell you why. Because these people are hell-bent on surviving. They want to carry out an attack, they want to survive, then they want to go back into the places they are hiding, in the jungles, in the entire Jammu region, in Doda and Kashwar and all these other places. There are a lot of those caves also which are out there. They hide in them. They then mingle with certain elements in the local population where they have support. They get their food from there. They survive. They keep on. Then they wait. Then they do their reconnaissance, and then they carry out another attack, and again then they flee, and then they wait, and then they carry out a third attack. And this has been the pattern, which is so different from the earlier attacks. So this is actually a big headache. It's a big problem for us, because these are not the perishable commodity terrorist kinds which we have encountered in the past. These are the kind who are staying put, who are going to inflict maximum damage. They have the ability to not only survive in very hostile terrain, but they also have the ability to do extremely good reconnaissance, I would say, and then carry out these very coordinated, sharp attacks. So this is a different kind of an infiltrator who's coming in from the other side. So we need to remember this major point. Let's start with the big problem, and then I will get down into the nitty-gritty of what's going wrong out here. The big problem is that we have been talking about that Kashmir has kind of stabilized in the past, that Kashmir is, the problem is almost, the terrorism problem is almost over. Tourism has been an upswing, and partly that is correct also. Tourism has been definitely an upswing. The tourist season we have done extremely well in the tourist season. All that is correct to that extent, but to say that terrorism has been eliminated not only from the valley but from the Jammu region is not at all correct. But we have been pushing forward this narrative. And in pushing forward this narrative, we have fooled ourselves in believing that Pakistan, because it is economically in a very tight, in a very bad situation, Pakistan has no resources left, and therefore Pakistan is easy prey. We can make fun of it, we can talk about it in any which way. We keep forgetting the raison d'etre. It's a French term. It means the reason for existence of Pakistan is to run these jihadi factories. They might starve, and Bhutto has made a statement to that effect when he said long back that I am prepared to eat grass, but I will still get to manufacture a nuclear bomb. This is the mentality of Pakistan. And therefore, whatever happens to Pakistan economically, it will not make the slightest difference in their efforts to run jihadi factories and to destabilize India. And that was a most vital lesson we forgot all along the way. So we need to keep this backdrop in mind before we even discuss the problem. Now, first, I'll come back, of course, to this issue, but let's kind of first understand the dimension of this infiltration problem. Who are these infiltrators? Now, these infiltrators, there are reports that there are about 600 of these SSG, Special Services Group commandos. A lot of people are saying they are retirees from the SSG, or they could be a fresh batch also. We don't know. These details will come out a little later. Maybe the number is not even 600, maybe it is 1/10 the number, or it is 10%, 20%, 30% of this number. We don't know, but whatever the number, it is still a bit too much. Even if, let's say, there are not 600, but even 50, 60 or 100 of these SSG, then it's a big headache, and they can cause havoc and destruction on a large scale. So that's the first thing we need to remember. Number two, it's now all these senior army officers and the police officers in that region are telling us that these are highly trained and motivated individuals. They are not your earlier garden variety suicide bombers. They are not the ill-trained kind who just come, probably do something, and then they don't mind perishing in the process. That mentality is no longer. These are survivors. These are people who want to survive. These are people who want to carry out more and more attacks in the future. So it's a different breed of an attacker which is coming in this time. Number three, these people this time are equipped with state-of-the-art weaponry. See, when America had left Kabul, there were a lot of these American weapons which were free floating in that entire, not only in Afghanistan, but in the entire region. And all the senior army officers are now saying that these people are equipped with M4 carbines, which are deadly weapons. And not only that, they all have night vision devices. They can spot our troops a kilometer away. Some people are even telling us that. And worse, they are using ammunition, they are using tipped bullets which can pierce through body armor, which is the big another reason that so many of our troops are dying. And just to give you a number, which is a very alarming number, that we have lost almost 48 soldiers and officers, 48 of our jawans and our officers in the last 32 months. That's an extremely high number. And therefore, the dimensions of the problem this time are completely different. And secondly, this time they have already done their reconnaissance. These people are already sure of the local support. They know exactly where to hide, where after carrying out an attack, they know exactly how to escape. Then they lie low. Maybe they lie low for 24 hours, 48 hours or longer or whatever. They get their food, they get their water, they get all their supplies from the local support that is already in place for them. And then they come back to carry out further attacks. So the dimensions of the problem this time are very different as compared to the past. So that's the first point. We have to understand the nature of the enemy which is coming in. It's a different kind of enemy. It's a more deadly kind of an enemy. And obviously, I'm very confident that our armed forces, our special teams, our commandos, we will definitely get the better of them eventually. But the question we have to ask also is that what are the other measures, and not only the measures, but what is the kind of thinking now we need to deal with this new situation, this hostile situation which is now prevalent in Jammu especially. Now, before you deal with such elements, before you carry out your countermeasures, one has to be very clear of what kind of thinking is there to carry out the countermeasures. And the first thing, the first reform I would even say, which we need to carry out is that we need to do a lot less talk and do a lot more action. And what do I mean by that? I mean by that the problem with us is that, let's take Kashmir, Jammu Kashmir for a minute. In the past, ever since 370 was taken out and it was put under governor's rule, which really means that a bureaucracy now is in charge of Kashmir, a lot of good things have happened. Let's also face the facts. The good things that have happened is that there has been a cleaning up process. Kashmir has to a very large extent been sanitized of these elements, no doubt about it. But what really happened is the challenge we have met is that we had the situation on the China border, and so a lot of troops were shifted to the China border. And we thought, well, it's going in our favor because Pakistan economically is in a complete black hole right now. They don't have the capability to do anything. And then we started this talk of reclaiming Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And it's not only the social media handlers, the different channels who have been indulging in this talk, but there has even been talk among certain ministers in the government. Oh yes, that the time is now ripe, or maybe someday not very far away we will take POK. For God's sake, POK, whatever the situation in POK, and certainly I agree with the fact that the people of POK are not happy with the Pakistani administration, there's no question about that. But the fact is, if anybody thinks it's going to be a cake for us to just go across and take over POK, see, let me explain something. Now, all conflicts are going to be viewed through the prism of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And what has that conflict taught us? That conflict has taught us one thing. Eventually, of course, Russia it has won the war. But do you think that Russia has not taken in casualties? Do you think Russia has not taken in damage? Russia is also, in a sense, living under the gun. The Ukrainians, of course, to a large extent, the country has been completely destroyed. And that's the short point which I'm making. When you go in for a conventional war, when you go in for a large scale war, as many people are getting, oh, let's go and get POK. The fact is, of course, you might get POK and all that, that's fine. But the country will suffer huge damage in the process. No question about it. And if we think that, to use a very colloquial Hindi term, that Pakistanis sirf ab bhuke nange reh gaye hain and they are not capable of anything, you are absolutely wrong. If nothing else, whatever little money they have, they will pour into their armed forces, and you will have a fight of your life on your hands. No question about it. That's going to happen. And therefore, what I'm saying is, we need to calm down. We need to stop this talk of POK, which we keep doing all the time. In fact, if we had been sensible, we should have built on the gains of sanitizing the valley, the Kashmir valley, and we should have put a security grid in such a manner that infiltration could not have been possible. But we let go of that. We became complacent. We were indulging in this huge, big talk all the time, and the gaps started appearing. We were pulling out forces from these sensitive areas, though that was also required, but some arrangement should have been made to fill in those gaps. They were not done, and obviously these infiltrators now have come in, and we are facing this problem. So that's the first issue we need to keep in mind. Number two, our policy overall, and that's a big problem with us, is always reactive and never proactive. Even the most spectacular strike which we carried out in the last few years, and by the way, that also was almost 4 or 5 years back, the Balakot strike. That was a reactive strike. It was obviously in response to Pulwama. We don't, especially not like the Israelis, we don't have security in our mind 24/7 when we should be having security on our mind 24/7, because whether we like it or not, on all the borders of India, right up to the China border, right on the Pakistan side, the LOC, the international border, whatever you want to call these arrangements, everywhere we face problems, we face adversaries, we face enemies, and therefore we need to have like an Israeli mindset, a security minded mindset, but unfortunately we don't have. We do achieve great things, and the Indian example is always given as like that of the elephant. The elephant is very slow to get up, but once it gets up and the elephant goes on a march, it crushes everything in its path, and India is like an elephant. That's our problem. We are slow to get up, we are slow to react, we are not proactive, we just wait for things to happen to us, a lot of pain is inflicted on us, and then finally we can't bear it any longer, we get up and we crush everything in our path. But that has to change. That mentality cannot continue, because we will continue to take losses if that happens. And number three, the big problem which was occurring in our strategic thinking was that we could not clearly understand the difference between the China problem and the Pakistan problem. See, let me explain it in this way. China today is definitely not only a big power, but China actually does not behave the way Pakistan behaves. That is, it sends these bad teams, SSG commandos or the terrorists or whatever. With China, the problem is a problem of intimidation. That's the Chinese rule of the thumb strategy. I'm not too sure the Chinese have it in them to wage a full-fledged fight. They have always won their battles. They have always tried to get their way through coercion and through intimidation. Mark my words, what I am saying. Coercion and intimidation. If you look at their behavior, not only vis-a-vis India, but if you look at their behavior vis-a-vis, let's say, the Philippines, for instance, or Japan, or certainly with Taiwan, with what have they been doing with Taiwan, for instance? You're sending an entire armada of ships near Taiwan. You are sending your fighter jets near Taiwan, but are you attacking Taiwan? They still haven't attacked Taiwan, because I suspect somewhere that Chinese don't have the stomach for a full-fledged conventional war. They don't have it, but they are very, very good. They are very smart in intimidating neighbors or people with whom they have problems, and that's the Chinese approach. The Pakistani approach is a little different, or rather quite different, I would say. See, the Pakistanis have nothing to lose. Let's let's face facts. Also, we have now no leverage with Pakistan. We have no trade with Pakistan. We have no, we are not supplying them food grains, or we are giving them something or the other with which they value. There is nothing which is going on with Pakistan. We just have some kind of a minor diplomatic presence now in Pakistan. That's it. It's a hostile enemy country for us. Now, when you have no leverage, that means you can't pressurize them. And they also, because there is nothing to lose from there on, so they also are like, they can launch attacks on us whenever they feel like, because for them, India will always be an existential problem for them. And it's not only Kashmir, I would say, the very creation, the very idea of India for them is a problem. So the Pakistanis, and let me also add here, unlike the Chinese actually now to that extent are like a Western power, where lives certainly wouldn't matter for them. But for the Pakistanis, lives don't matter. They are prepared, whether they want to send in suicide bombers or jihadists or terrorists or SSG commandos, and if these people are killed in the process, eliminated, they couldn't care less. Cannon fodder for them, quite literally. And therefore, if anybody in India, in the strategic thinking in India, has calculated, the Pakistanis are in a hole right now, they have no capability, they can do nothing, please, for God's sake, change your thinking. The Pakistanis till the last day will have the capability of sending cannon fodder, terrorists, infiltrators across the line of control, across the international border to trouble us. They will keep on doing this, and if we let go of our guard, then it's our problem, it's not their problem. And that is what has been actually happening to us. And therefore, I'm saying we have this problem of what I call let sleeping dogs lie mentality, forgetting that one day that sleeping dog, and this is very apparent in the Kashmir Valley, because as I said, after we scrapped Article 370 and then the forces were at work, we cleansed the valley of these infiltrators, all the stone throwing, everything came to an end. That was a great success, absolutely. And then we felt comfortable, we let go of all our security concerns, let sleeping dogs lie mentality, and now that dog has woken up, it's now gone rabid and it is biting us, and that is what is really happening. Then we are what I call this, for want of a better word, I'm using a Hindi word called karuna, compassion. It means compassion. We are just, as Indians, we are always full of karuna for some strange reason. And I'll give you the biggest example of that. In 1971, when we won the war against Pakistan and we created Bangladesh, this was, I think, one of the most incredible victories in the history of the world. But then what did we do a few months after that? We had captured lakhs and lakhs of Pakistani soldiers. We just returned all those soldiers back to Pakistan. Ki bhai apne desh aap wapas chale jao. That's what we did. We could have broken the back of Pakistan after that if we had not returned those soldiers. They would have been completely, we would have held them to our terms. We let go of that. They again re-energized and re-strengthened. The nuclear program came back. All that happened in Pakistan simply because of the fact, because we, as I keep saying, we are susceptible to karuna, to compassion. कोई बात नहीं, हमने कर लिया, we have achieved. अब जाने दो, अब छोड़ो, let sleeping dogs lie. अब पाकिस्तान का गेम खत्म हो चुका है. The Pakistan game is never ever over. And if this is a lesson of history we don't learn, then we will always suffer. And that's the short point which I'm making today. And therefore, we have to ask this question. It's a very tough question, but I'm still going to ask this question, is that even for us, it is for the Pakistanis, but even for us, is life cheap in India? Are the lives of our soldiers, are the lives of our officers, is it becoming cheap for us? As I gave you the number, 48 soldiers and officers killed in the last 32 months in that sector. This is an incredibly high number. And what are we doing about it? We have actually done nothing about it, if you ask me. We have just put some reactive, and now there are reports coming in that 3,000 men probably are going to be reshuffled from somewhere and moved to this particular sector. But that's not enough. That is not enough at all. And therefore, the big problem with us is it's a mental attitude that when we gain something, we immediately let go of the gains. We don't build on the gains. We don't have a staying power like the Israelis. As I keep saying, why are the Israelis the most formidable armed forces, security minded people in the world? Because for the Israelis, security is a 24/7 existential mindset. It is not that, oh, we got to do it for the next 2 or 3 months or 6 months, and after that hum aaram se so jayenge, and then things will be taken care of. It never happens like that. Security is a continuous 24/7 process. You need strategic thinkers, you need implementers, you need a security grid that carries this in 24/7 and does not give any breathing space to the enemy. But we not only give breathing space, we actually give them oxygen cylinders. Please suck it in so that you can come back and attack us. And that's unfortunately our big problem. So continuous security minded setup is needed. It's a pressure we have to apply continuously. And then let me come to some of the recommendations, because I think it's important also that we look for positives, we look for practical things, what we can do, and we have to now start thinking practically that what is it that we can do. I've talked of the defensive measures, but there has to be what is called an offensive measures also have to be taken. Whether Pakistan cooperates or not, whether it is an enemy state or not, whether they are sending SSG commandos or bat teams or plain terrorists or suicide bombers or malcontents or whoever they are sending, that doesn't matter. The fact is, you need a policy of elimination and putting the pressure right back on Pakistan. Now, all these months we have been hearing these reports of unknown gunmen, carrying out targets or eliminating targets in Pakistan. That might be true. I have no way of knowing about that. And there is a theory which is floating around that some of these attacks actually were carried out by the Taliban. And why would the Taliban do that? Because the Taliban doesn't have particularly good relations with Pakistan right now. And also the fact is that we are supplying food grains and essential materials to the Taliban. Probably the Taliban are obliged, and they in a way are indirectly helping us by carrying out these attacks. Maybe these are teams from RAW which are carrying out the attacks. I don't know. I wouldn't even hazard a guess, because these are very sensitive security matters. So I wouldn't like to say like other podcasters, oh, I know about what's going on. I don't know. But yes, something was going on. So if such a program is in place, then obviously we need to strengthen the program, and this is where our biggest strength come in. And I don't understand why we don't understand the strength of us. Our biggest strength right now is, and the biggest weakness of Pakistan is, that we have the money, they don't have any money. We have the money to carry out any kind of a program we want, which means if you want to use the route of the Taliban, fund the Taliban, give them Taliban money or food grains or whatever you want to give to them, and they carry out attacks on your behalf, by all means, go ahead, do it. If you want to get hold of agent provocators inside Pakistan and they carry out these attacks, by all means do that. But please, internally, you must have your teams, you must have all this in place, where these people then eliminate these targets, these jihadi factories, they destroy them, put the pressure right back on Pakistan. That's the first important point. So what I'm saying is, money power will play a very critical role. If you control the funds, you control the narrative, you control the way the war is going. The person, and that's another big reason, let's not forget, I'm sure the Israelis are a very brave lot and all that, but the Israelis also are flushed with money, with funds. Their IT sector, their services is doing extremely well. And that's a big reason they have the money for all the fancy, all the deadly equipment in the world. And that's another big factor why the Israelis are so successful in their strikes. We need to do the same. We have the money power now. Pakistan doesn't have, and therefore let's deploy, let's use this uh, thing which we have in our hands. Number two, we right now, even right now, we have the latest tech. It's not that we are just waiting for the Predator drones to come in, but we have a lot of advanced drones. And what do these drones do? Put the drone up in the sky at 30,000 feet, track down your enemy targets, that is the commanders of these terrorist outfits, track them down, do a reconnaissance from within a week, 10 days, 15 days, month if necessary, and then when you get the opportunity, strike, eliminate them. You do it by laser guided bombs or whatever. There are so many other ways the drones do it. What's stopping us from doing that? Put the pressure right back. Once the terrorist commanders know that they are in the crosshairs, they will also think twice before they resort to these activities. And that goes for even those Pakistan army officers who are plotting all these attacks on us. And number three, now we really need to get rid of this mentality, oh, we cannot cross the line into Pakistan. See, we have already done that in Balakot. But the fact is, they have been sending infiltrators, these commandos, these bad teams, practically on a daily basis. What are they doing? They are crossing the border. They are coming to our side. They are wreaking destruction and havoc on our side. What is stopping you? And I'm certainly not advocating, like certain idiots keep doing on in certain channels, oh, let's now go to war against Pakistan. You don't have to do all that. All you need to do, as I said, send in your latest tech, deadly weapons across in the first thing. As I said, send your drones, send in, there are so many other ways where you can eliminate targets. Forget about this peace pact or so-called. We have that artillery duels do not happen. Today we have artillery which can, it goes much beyond Pakistani border posts. It goes beyond that. The shells can go beyond that. The moment an attack happens, then start shelling the other side, blow up their posts. Please remember, you need to have a ratio of 1:10. You have to at least aspire to that ratio. They kill one of yours, you kill 10 of theirs. Only then you will start winning this war. And this will happen once you break this pact. Start this daily shelling. We can afford it, they can't. That's the point which I'm making. We have the money power now. So get your artillery in place. We have some of the fantastic artillery pieces with us right now. The howitzers in the Indian Army are the state of the art. They are the best in the world. Use them, deploy them. Pakistan can respond for some time, but not for long, because they don't have the ammunition, they don't have the money to respond on a long term. Let them beg for peace, then dictate your terms, but keep up the pressure all the time. Use drones, use when the Predators come in, use them. You also have a lot of earlier Israeli variety UAVs. You have these drones with you which can already do the task. Use them, use the artillery, and then obviously we have specialized commando teams. We have as we know, we have the Marine Commando Force. We have a lot of other special special forces in small pickets in group sizes of 10 to 15. I mean, I don't have to say all this. All the specialists know this. Send them across at times, wreak havoc on the other side. I mean, these are all options. You don't have to go for a full-fledged conventional war with Pakistan. And finally get this thing out of your head that there will be a nuclear fallout of this. Trust me, it will never happen, and I'll give you a very interesting example. See, right now, for instance, if you look at the map of the world and you look at the West Asia and you look at what is happening in the Israel and the entire situation out there, a lot of people are saying that Israel and Iran could go to war any day. And please remember, Israel, of course, is a nuclear power. We know that. Iran is not a declared nuclear power, but a lot of people feel it probably already has the nuclear weapon, or it is absolutely very, very close to developing a nuclear weapon. But has that stopped Israel from launching attacks deep inside Iran? It hasn't. Simply because the Israelis also know that that is never going to happen, and therefore the war, if it happens, will be a conventional war. And that's the short point which I am making, that if there are people who just freeze, at the thought of, oh, there will be a nuclear war with Pakistan, For God's sake, first protect your territory. We are actually protecting our territory. We don't covet somebody else's territory. We are actually protecting ourselves. Whatever we are doing to protect ourselves, and for that it means, using incursions, coming back, using technology, using state-of-the-art deadly weaponry to eliminate targets on the other side. We just have to do it, because if we don't do it, if we don't deploy an offensive strategy, then by pure defense, by just maybe reshuffling troops from one point to the other and bringing them to Jammu, and then trying to somehow in this khichdi hoping that this entire thing will die down, it's not going to die down. This Pakistan's end game is their only game, and that is sending infiltration across. Tomorrow, even if you were to sign a peace deal with Pakistan, even then infiltration will never ever stop. The employment in the state of Punjab, that is on the Pakistani side, today is basically jihadi factories. That is what they do. That is the only kind of employment which is there, besides a little bit of agriculture. They will continue to export terror. They were trying to do that to Afghanistan till Afghanistan has hit back at them. They will continue to do that in India, and we need to wake up, learn the lessons, and use security as not a part-time kind of a measure, but as a full-time thinking, acting, mental attitude. It has to be a 24/7 job for us, because if we don't do that, then problems like what we are experiencing right now in Jammu are going to grow more and more, and I'm afraid then it will start spilling to the Kashmir Valley, and the whole region could again go out of control as it has done in the past. To avoid that, we need to take quick, effective and deadly measures as fast as possible. And so on this note, I come to the end of this particular podcast. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Do subscribe to my show. Push that red button and become a subscriber. Do like my show also. And on that note, it's goodbye from me, and cheers to everyone.